Alright, and welcome back to the channel. This week we're going to be talking about a sleight of hand technique. As you can probably tell from the title down below, assuming that you clicked on this video because of that, we're going to be talking about the pinky count. So if you don't know what the pinky count is, it's basically a way for you to count off as many cards as you need for a certain purpose. Nowadays it's basically used for a double lift, but I won't get into that. I'll only get into the pinky count. So yeah, so obviously before we begin, I always like to brush up on history because I think history is important. So yeah, it's whatever. So most commonly the pinky count is known to be created by Hofzinser back in the Vernon Chronicles volume 2, I think, back in 1987 or 88, I think. Yeah, I think it's 1988. So Vernon Chronicles, Vernon Chronicles volume 2 in 1988. But obviously it's been disproven that Hofzinser created it because we found several instances of it being published in the Genie magazine. I think exactly 2. And obviously Ed Marlowe actually published some iteration of the pinky count in his pamphlets or booklets. But the earliest account of the pinky count that I know of is actually in the Fred Browie notebooks. Is it Fred Browie notebooks? Yeah, it's a Fred Browie notebook. So if you don't know who Fred Browie is, it's basically a shortened version for Frederick Browie. So Frederick Browie is the one who wrote, along with G. Newgard, he wrote Expert Card Technique, he wrote Encyclopedia of Card Tricks, Card Manipulations, more card manipulations, and a lot more stuff. So he's a big deal. So he published that back in 1937, I think. So that's the earliest iteration of the pinky count that we know of. I think he published it under the name of FB Top Countdown, I think. I'm not sure about that. I might need to read up on that, but that's generally it. So 1937, that's the earliest iteration of the pinky count. But where I learned the pinky count was actually on YouTube. So, you know, as you are now. So, you know, it is what it is. But the main reason why I am presenting the pinky count to you is that I actually have 2 different iterations of the pinky count that I would like to present that's different from the normal pinky count. So, you know, that's pretty neat. I won't claim them as mine, but, you know, there's logic behind as to why I am presenting them. So, yeah. So let's go into the normal pinky count first. Alright, so you have your deck of cards over here. So the very first thing that you should know about a deck of cards is that it is not a singular block, right? Like so, right? What you should know about a deck is that it's actually 52 different entities, and as such, you can it actually conforms to your hand when you hold it. And it's important because when I hold a deck, you'll notice that it is actually beveled from top to bottom in the bottom right corner and the top left corner. And this is actually very important for the pinky count. So over here, this is the bevel exaggerated. So this is what you need. And if you don't naturally get into this position when you hold a deck, then just to get into this position is very simple. You just slightly kick the cards with your thumb and the pinky, and what you'll notice is that it'll actually just, you know, kick the bevels in place, and that's it, right? So again, you have a normal deck, or you have like your standard position, I don't know, but you just kick it with your thumb and your pinky, and then you have it over here, right? Also, you don't need like a huge bevel. This is just enough. So yeah. The very second step to the pinky count is moving your thumb to the top left corner. So essentially what this is doing is that you're basically just clipping the deck, right, with your index and the thumb, right? So right now the deck is being supported by around this section of the index over here and around this section of the thumb. So it's just this, right? And this is going to be very important. And the next most important finger is the pinky, right? And it is near the bottom right corner, right? Over around here, right? So that's pretty much all the fingers that you need. I mean, the middle finger and the ring finger, they don't really come into play until later, so I'll just leave it at that. So your pinky applies, doesn't really apply any pressure. It just keeps the top card over here, so it's just over here. But you're in this position, and what you're going to do is that you're basically just going to push your thumb down, right? So you're going to apply pressure until it slightly bends over here, right? So you can tell from the reflection over here that it's actually bending over here. At the same time, your pinky is actually kind of pulling down. So then this is what's happening to the deck, right? It's actually doing this, right? Like so, but on a smaller scale. So what you're gonna be doing is that you're actually just gonna slowly bring your pinky downwards, right? So you're basically just gonna pull your pinky down like so. And because of the count of the pressure over here and of the pressure over here, what this causes the deck to do is that it actually pops up one card at a time, right? As you pull the cards down. And don't worry if you don't get it on first try. It's actually a move that requires practice, right? Because your pinky is actually your weakest finger, so you will need to build some muscle for it. So, you know, just practice the pinky count over and over. So just to recap, you're over here, you have you're applying pressure over here, you're applying pressure on the bottom right corner, and you're just gonna slowly bring your pinky down until cards pop up one by one, right? Over here. And that's the, so just as a demonstration, this is what's basically happening. You're bending the deck like so, and this is what's happening, right? Pop. And then you're riffling them down one by one. That's basically what's happening on a larger scale. But here it's just very slight, and you can just riffle them down one by one, and that's basically it, right? So, so obviously there are some finer details, and that is where the ring finger comes in. So if you notice, if I'm over here, you'll notice that this card actually pops up over here, right? When I do the pinky count. And that's because there's way too much pressure, right? But if that's what you need for the pinky count, then go ahead, right? But that's where this finger comes into play, right? So instead of just leaving the middle and ring finger like just loose, you can actually bring your ring finger closer to the deck, so then it actually keeps the cards from popping up too much, right? So over here, so you can see that I riffled off one card, but the ring finger is actually keeping this card from popping up too much, right? So I'm over here, my ring finger is over here, and if you noticed, there, I just did it, but you didn't see anything pop up, and that's because my ring finger is actually keeping it close to the deck, right? So that's basically it for your normal pinky count, right? There's nothing really too difficult mechanics-wise. It's more of a muscle development thing, but yeah. So you're just gonna flex both corners and then slowly release them one by one. And that's basically it. So the very next, so now we go into some more, some touches that I have for the pinky count, right? So the very first thing that I noticed about the pinky count is that you needed to change grips for it. right? So it's a very slight grip change over here, right? So usually when I hold a deck, I hold it like so, right? My thumb doesn't really go across the deck, but for the pinky count, I do need to do that, right? And as I discovered, you don't need to do that, right? You don't need to move your thumb across the deck to execute the pinky count, right? And that's because of the bevel, right? So obviously I've explained the bevel before, and it's like so. So instead of applying pressure across the deck, across the top left corner of the deck, you could actually just apply pressure just over here, right? With just the bare minimum of flesh over here, right? So this is all the flesh that you need for a pinky count. And you'll notice that my thumb is actually riding on top of the bevel. So this actually helps contribute and support the deck. So right now you can actually do the exact same thing as the normal one, right? You can actually apply pressure with your index and thumb and apply some counter pressure with your pinky and slowly get into it, right? So this means that you don't have to move your thumb around to execute a pinky count. You can just pick up the deck, execute what you need, and that's it, right? Simple. And the reason why I actually did this is that I just didn't like the grip change, right? It's a very simple reasoning, but I think that details really matter, because once you add layers of detail on top of layers of detail, that's when I think you're actually trying to refine things and, you know, reach perfection, well, as much as you can. So just the slightest bit of detail can have an impact. So yeah. So again, it's the same as this, but your thumb is actually over here, applying pressure. So applying pressure on the top left corner over here, and that's it, right? And you'll notice that throughout your practice with the pinky count is that it's a very soft move, right? You don't need a lot of pressure to do it. You don't need this to just do the pinky count. It's easier if you do it, but in actuality, you actually don't need the ring finger to lessen the pop-up, because the pinky count is a very soft move. So this is actually all that pops up when I do the pinky count, right? This is it, right? So if you actually look at it from the front or whatever, right, this is all that's popping up from the pinky count, right? So when I do card magic, I try to be really relaxed. I try to be really soft with the deck, because this is paper, right? You don't need a lot of force to control it. So at the end of the day, you know, the pinky count, you don't need your ring finger to, you know, hide the pop, because you don't need that much pressure, right? So I'll demonstrate again, just the slightest bit of pressure over here. Right, so over here, and just pop, right, and that's it, right? That's it. But I have one last modification for you, and that is if your thumb is occupied, right? So it is a very random thought that I just came up with. Well, not really that I came up with it a while back, but I doubt it's original. So essentially, if your thumb is occupied doing something else, so let's take, for example, like that one Ed Marlowe pop-up move or whatever, right? So your thumb is actually occupied, right? It can't do anything to help the pinky count, right? Because right now the card is the thumb is supporting this card, right? If you let go, then you can angel it. But if you let go, then, you know, the card falls off. So your thumb can't help the pinky count, but you absolutely need a pinky count to do this move or whatever, right? So in this position, I'll just do it from a normal deck. What you can do is that you can actually do the pinky count from using your index, right? So in this instance, it's actually this. It's actually this little nudge of your index that's gonna help do the pinky count. So your index is actually applying pressure towards the bottom left corner over here, towards the fat of your thumb over here. And what this is doing is that this actually allows for sufficient pressure for your pinky to just come in and just execute the pinky count, right? Over here, right? So this means that you don't need your thumb to do it. So you can just riffle off one by one over here, right? So in the case of the example that I explained earlier, right? If I have a card popped up over here and I can't use my thumb, I can still execute the pinky count without much problem. So if you took a look at Ed Marlowe's drop switch, where he uses this thing, you will need to get a break underneath the card over here. And so in this instance, this method of a pinky count just works just fine, right? So there are drills for you to help out with the pinky count. Well, it involves more pinky counting, but I do think that this helps out. So the very first, the only drill that I know of, the only drill that I use is basically just, you just do one, count off one card, right? And then take it off the deck, right? You count off 2 cards, and then you take it off the deck. You count off 3 cards, and then you pick it off the deck. And you count off 4, and then so on, right? So this helps build muscle memory, and also helps just build muscle in general. So yeah, that's basically the drill that I use to help with muscles, to help with pinky strength, right? Or if you're into some more masochist, if you're into like the more difficult stuff, you can practice, like, I don't know, a one-handed bottom palm to get that pinky strength going. And yeah. But generally, I think the first drill is the one that works the best for me. So count off 2, count off 3, and so yeah. And just do so on until you get used to the pinky count. Now, let's talk about a few problems I have with the pinky count, mainly from people that I've seen, right? So, let me go back to the other camera. So, the pinky count, one of the biggest pet peeves that I actually see with the pinky count is that people tend to freeze when they do the pinky count. So you have people doing like, oh, hey, what's up, or whatever, and then they just freeze, right? And then they do the pinky count, and then they resume, right? So that's actually a huge pet peeve of mine, because like, why would you suddenly freeze when you're doing the pinky count? Like, just resume. You don't need to like just suddenly freeze, right? You can just keep on talking, keep on doing whatever you want as you do the pinky count, right? So that's just whatever, right? So obviously, yeah, so that relates to the theory of like flow or body language that I should have published a while back, but I didn't, so you know. But yeah, so freezing, suddenly freezing is a pet peeve of mine when people do the pinky count. The other pet peeve is when they look down as they do pinky count, just to make sure that they're counting off the right amount of cards. So that just means that they're lacking practice and that they don't trust their muscle memory enough. So, you know, if you're doing that, then you're lacking practice. Yeah. The other thing that bothers me is when they do the pinky count, they let the deck remain like this, right? And then, yeah. But in actuality, if you're actually just not doing anything with the deck, then you would just like leave it like so, and right, you would just leave it in a perpendicular position, which would actually help a lot with the cover of the move, right? So you're doing this, right? Right, you get so much more cover with the move than doing something like this, right? So that's my 3 pet peeves for the pinky count. It's one, just suddenly freezing in place. The other is just looking at the deck as you do the pinky count, and the other is just leaving the deck like so as you do the pinky count rather than shifting it away. Actually, I believe that for the first point, just suddenly freezing and then doing the pinky count is actually something that Richard Kaufman complained about, and it's actually something that I noticed as well. So, yeah. But that's generally it for the pinky count. If you want more information on the pinky count, I have obviously there's the further reading section that's going to pop up a bit later, but off the top of my head, we have Jason England's pinky count download on Theory 11. We also have David Malik's YouTube tutorial on Jeremy Griffith's channel, so Los Angeles. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll put down a bunch of other stuff, and yeah. Hope to see you guys next time, and that's about it for the pinky count tutorial. See ya.